Hi Year 8s, Mr Jeffries here. I'm in school all day Wednesday, so I won't be able to present my lesson live to you, but because it's quite a complicated topic, I didn't want to leave Google Classroom work, so I am just simply presenting this as a recording. Now, the beauty of this is there'll be regular occasions where you're doing work and I'll ask you to pause, and that's all you'll do is you'll pause the video to give you a chance to do it. So this video may only be 15 or 20 minutes long, but there is definitely enough work for the full hour. Okay, I'm just going to run you through the things that you are going to need for this. Okay, so there'll be my slides that you can see there that you'll be using at some point. They'll be there to help you. But all your writing will be done on the Cornell grid. So just like yesterday, every piece of work we do, I will make it so that you can write your answers in our Cornell grid, and I'll also make it really, really clear for you what bit of the grid you're working in. So it should be fine for you guys, okay? Also, you'll find that when there's videos embedded in the lesson, I think there is one of them, I won't play the video through this recording because what it'll do is it'll feed back and it'll sound awful. I will place the video as a link and I'll say to you, okay, it's time to pause the recording and watch this video instead. Okay, hope that all makes sense. It'll make sense as we go along. Okay, so we're going to start off with a quick factual recall test of some of the work we've done during lockdown. Okay, so these are coming from last lesson, last week, 2 weeks ago, and some of them further back earlier in the year. So if you can pause the tape now and just write down on a piece of paper or something your answers to these questions. Okay, assuming that you've done this, I'm just going to put those answers in for you. Okay, and that was just, don't worry if you didn't get them all, this was just a way of getting you to revisit the work you've done earlier in the year, and it's just a starter, so we're going to move on now, guys. Okay, so we're looking at our learning intentions today. We have moved on from looking at some of the other causes where we looked at militarism and imperialism, and today we're going to look at alliances and nationalism. Okay, so that's where we are, and you'll see how that fits into our learning journey. Okay, so you can see we started off looking at the long-term causes and a couple of them, and now we're going to be looking at how the alliance system worked, because the alliance system was a big reason why the First World War began. Okay, so during the course of this lesson and future lessons, you're going to hear a lot of these phrases being used, this key vocabulary on the left: allies, alliances, triple entente, triple alliance, allied powers, Europe. And over the next few lessons, these will appear a lot. So I think that it is worth you spending a couple of minutes now, pausing this recording and just writing those keywords down in the left-hand column of your Cornell grid. You can see I'm hovering over it now. You can see, okay, getting those ideas down, because that'll help your notes later make more sense to you. So please pause the recording while you do that. Okay, I'm going to assume you've done that now, so we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so remember, we use the acronym MAIN when we talk about the causes, the main causes of World War I. It's quite convenient, really. So we look at M, militarism, A, alliances, I, imperialism, and N, nationalism. And you can see that we already looked at militarism and imperialism last lesson. So today we are going to consider alliances and nationalism. Okay, so alliances are agreements between countries to work together towards a common goal. Doesn't sound too bad, that, does it? You think, how does countries working together cause a war? Well, we will see that today. And also nationalism, having a sense of pride in your country, its achievements, how strong it looks, etc. But sometimes alongside nationalism, alongside pride in your own country, you sometimes can get a disdain and a disrespect for other countries. So it might be worth just writing a quick answer to that question, maybe just a sentence or two in the main body of your Cornell grid. How do these two things cause hostility? And the alliances will give you a hand. If you having a bit of aggravation with another person in class and you know you've got a tough friend who will back you up, are you more likely or less likely to pick a fight? I want you to think about that, because that will help you answer the question as to how alliances might make countries more likely to fight. Okay, so we're going to move that on, pause the tape, assume you've done that, I'm going to move it on now. Okay, so let's look at nationalism first. Okay, people are proud of the countries. Britain was very proud of its large empire. About a third of the world was owned by Britain. It had a strong navy. But Germany, which was a fairly young country, as a one country, Germany had only existed about 40 years. Before that, it had been dozens and dozens of small kingdoms. And all countries had a great deal of pride, and for example, the Germans wanted to show that they were just as powerful as Britain and they could be important like we were. We wanted to show them that we could be more important. Okay? So I just want you to think and write in your Cornell grid a small explanation about why nationalism could make the situation worse, and think about what you did last lesson about militarism, okay, and how that could make nationalism, could make that arms race, each country trying to have more and more weapons, worse. So I want you to pause the recording for a couple of minutes while you write that sentence. Okay, I'm going to assume you've done that and we're moving on. Okay, so what I want you to do at this point is pause this recording and go to the other link in your Google Classroom and watch that video through. Okay, I want you then to use the information you get from the video and the information that I've put on this screen to help you write some basic notes about the alliance system. And you can see here that I want you to write them in the main body of your notes. So remember, Britain and France had traditionally been enemies for hundreds and hundreds of years, but actually by this time were friends and had joined together with Russia on the other side of Europe to forge an alliance, which meant if one of them was attacked by another country, the others would all join in. Equally, Germany and Austria-Hungary, which are both German-speaking countries, decided they had a lot in common and they would create their own gang. And then weirdly, Italy joined it. Although that's a little bit of an odd one, but you'll see later when you do the First World War, because Italy really wasn't much use at all to Germany and Austria. Okay, so watch the video, read these notes, pause the tape recording, and add to your Cornell notes in this main body. Okay, I'm assuming that you've done that task and you're ready to move on to the next bit. Okay, now you can see a map here, okay, and this is about the alliances. You can see that we've got in yellow, although Britain should be coloured yellow, and for whatever reason on this map it isn't, we've got the countries of the Triple Entente. So we've got France and Russia and Britain, and you can see in between there you've got Germany and Hungary. Italy isn't quite part of it yet, and that's why it's not peach colour yet. And actually Britain only joined the alliance with France and Russia a little bit later, so you can see a little bit more about it. Now, if you look at this, which countries, which alliance would feel most threatened here? I want you to think about it. I mean, don't be too worried about the size of Russia. Russia is massive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that its resources are better. It just happens to be an enormous country. But I want you to look at the positioning of the different countries and think, which are the countries that would be most worried by this alliance system? And how do you think this might lead to a war? So all I want you to do is have a think about it. I want you to pause this recording and write again in the main body of this, the main body of your Cornell grid. Okay? Right, I'm going to assume you've done that and you are now ready to move on to the next bit of the lesson. So, here we go. based on the work that we've done, this lesson on the video and the previous slides, you now have 6 statements. Some of them are true, some of them are correct, some of them are wrong. What you're going to do is, the ones that you know are true straight away, you're going to write in your Cornell grid in the main body. So your notes are growing, but the statements that you know were wrong, I want you to correct, and then write that correct version in. So if I help you out with the first 2, the first one's right. France did belong to the Triple Entente, just write that in. But number 2 is wrong. Russia and Italy were not allies. So all you've got to do is you've got to change it. Now, you could either substitute out Russia and put another country who actually was an ally with Italy, or you could leave Russia in, get rid of Italy, and substitute Italy for another country that actually was an ally of Russia. So it's all up to you, but at the end, you will still have 6 statements. Everyone will have 6 statements in, all of them true. Some of them you'll have had to make true. Some of them you won't. Some of them will already be correct. So I would like you to pause the recording while you do this work. Okay, thank you. I'm going to assume you've done that work now. And we're into the final stretch now. Now, this is the end of the lesson, and this is a plenary. And all I want you to do is, this table here gives you the 4 reasons for the First World War beginning that we've looked at over the last 2 lessons. Okay, now there's a copy of this table in your summary of your Cornell grid. So your summary today of your Cornell learning will be to do this task. But as I say, there's a copy of it on the document. And for each one, you've just got to say 1 to 4 to begin with. So if, for example, you said alliances was the most important thing, the thing that most caused the war, you'd put 1 for that. If you thought, nah, it's not important, it'd be 4. So 1 is the most important, 4 is the least important. And for each one of them, then you've got to put a reason for your answer. Okay? Now, those of you who are looking to make an extra special job of this and make this really good, and there's some of you that really go for it and want to get that extra credit, remember, you can do the stretching challenge as well. So explain why what the cause that you put is least important. Explain why for you it's nowhere near as important as the others. Okay, now that's it for me. Just a quick reminder that all of your notes need to go in this grid. So you can see we've got room here for everything that you do. Okay, you've got your keywords section for those slides. You've got your notes that will go there. That will stretch, so because there will be a lot more. And then your summary there, you will do in the little table below. So it's all set out for you. I hope this creates no problems. And hopefully we'll be good to go when I see you back in class next week. Brilliant. Take care, guys.